Hi, I'm Danielle with Stitch and Designs. Welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm doing a brand new pattern designer. I'm really excited about this one. This is such a cool backpack. It is from Casey Originals. And so I made matching twins, or semi-twins. So these guys are super cute. So this is the one that you'll see me be doing in the video. And I wanted to point out a couple differences. This was my first one. There's a few things in there that I had never really come across. Like I didn't know about using nylon to help reinforce seams. That was new for me. And then I didn't have any rope. So this handle is a flat handle, where in the video one, I actually got rope. And then I made it's more of a rounded one. So it actually feels really nice. I've never done one before. So holding the two of them, it's like, wow, there's a good difference between them. And I actually really like the rope ones. And then what's cool, this strap. So one, you could wear it as a backpack option, or you close the zipper and then you can move the one swivel clasp to either side, and then you have a sling. So it works, so you have a dual purpose. And then what's cool, it's super cute. You also have a little kind of like security pocket on the back side, which I really like that part. And on the inside, you just kind of open your drawstrings. And you got a nice little amount of room for a nice, the name speaks for itself, Daytrip, or Daytripper. Yeah, I think it's Daytripper. But either way, it is a great day trip backpack. So there is a slip pocket and a zipper pocket in there as well. So this is definitely a really fun backpack. A few new things for me. I've never really done any, they call them grommets. I still don't know the difference between a grommet and an eyelet, but I've never used grommets this large before in a bag. So that was my first time. And I've never done a strap just like this before. So that was a new thing for me as well. And then of course, like the rope, and then adding in the nylon, or in my case, I used ribbon because I don't have nylon. So a few new things for me. So it was a really fun experience to be able to do this bag. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We'll get right to it.
Okay, before we get going, I'm going to go over all of our pieces and the things we're going to need. You'll need zipper tape, and I'm using number 5, so it's continuous. On the zipper pockets, you might be able to get away with number 3 if you have those, but just kind of personal preference. And then there are 3 zipper pulls. I have 2 D-rings. You can also use rectangles or circles. It's depending on what type of hardware you have. You can personal preference on that. I have 2 slide adjusters, and then I have 2 swivel clasps. And then these are kind of more on the optional side. At the end of it, like for strap-ins, so I have these 2 where I just kind of they get pressed together. So these will go on the ends of my backpack straps, but you don't have to use them if you don't want to. And then on the ends of our little drawstrings, these are actually zipper ends. So I'm just going to be using them for these pull straps. So that is the hardware. And if you didn't have these or didn't want to use these, you don't have to. You can just kind of like make them look finished however you would like. Okay, for our actual physical pieces, we have our back piece, which I have my fusible fleece, and it is just centered onto our back piece. This is the back top. So on the pattern piece, it has where your fold marks are. So I just kind of slid the pattern over, made a little mark on each end, and then used my ruler to connect them and draw a line. That makes it so much easier to apply your Decoville light or your interfacing. And you want to apply it just below the line, like just barely below the line. And then that's going to help us when we get towards the end and where we're going to fold it over. It gives us that nice fold line. And then I also, because I pre-drew there, but I also drew them on the outside on the exterior pieces. I personally do not own a 11mm punch. So I'm going to have to be using a 4.5mm hole punch and just make a whole bunch of them to make these big enough. So that'll be lots of fun when I get down to that part. But if you have an 11mm punch, you can punch this side. Do not punch this side yet until we get to that part. So you can just pre-punch one side. So that is our back top. This is our front. So again, I did the same thing, pre-drew the lines, and then that's where our magnet's going to go. So I have it on this side, but I also have it on the reverse side. It's just wherever you want to place it. And again, I did the same thing with our fold lines, made two little marks, drew a line, and then added my Decoville just below that. And then my fleece is just below the Decoville light. So you want to make sure you apply your Decoville light first, and then your fleece just under that. So there's that piece. And then my flap, I just have my fusible fleece centered on that one. And then I am using waterproof. So my materials are, this is like a faux leather vinyl type material. So this is more like a vinyl. And then this is more like a faux suede, faux leather. And then I'm using for all my interior, I'm using a waterproof canvas, so it does not need to be interfaced, which I absolutely love it. And I already punched the hole for the magnet on this one for the flap. I have our 2 big lining pieces, so those are already set. Then smaller pieces, we have our slip pocket, which I have a interfacing on. So we got our slip pocket, so you're gonna need 4, not slip pockets, zipper pockets. You're going to need 4 of these zipper pocket pieces because we have a zipper pocket on the inside and on the back. And since we're on the zippers, we have our little overlay pieces. And if you don't want to use an overlay, you don't have to. The pattern is written for the overlay, but if you have a personal preference on not using them and you already know how, that's totally fine. I'm just going to be showing you what the pattern instructions say. So we'll be doing overlays. We have the slip pocket. This is like a little cover over the top of that one. This is our middle back piece for the exterior. And I just put my Decoville light centered all the way around right in the middle. We have our bottom exterior pieces. So there's 2 of them. And again, my fusible fleece is just centered on that one. Here is our drawstring piece. The drawstring little like slider tab thingy that we push on. And then we have our handle. And then for our D-rings. And then our straps. And funny enough, I think I accidentally cut these like an inch too short. Or I know I cut them too short, and yeah, my ruler wasn't long enough and I wasn't mathing very well at the time. So, but they still work out because my first one, I did the same thing because I cut all the straps at the same time and they still work. Okay, so there's all of those pieces. And I'll tell you now, if you hear any snoring, it's going to be one of my corgis. She's over in the corner of my sewing room and she's always where I am. So just letting you know that that's what that is if you happen to hear snoring. Couple other things you guys will need if you have a personal business label. So this is mine. I just embroider it on a piece of vinyl. If you have one of those, or if you have one of those cute like little sew-in tags, you could totally use that. You're also going to need double-sided stick tape. I totally ran out of the 1/8 inch one, so I'm going to be using 1/4 inch. And then you will need rope for the handle. If you don't have rope, you don't have to use it. Like, it is a nice thing, and that's how the pattern is written. But on my first one that I did, I ended up not using it and just stitching it flat, so it's more of a flat handle than more of a kind of more ergonomical curved handle. So you want to make sure that it's 6 millimeters, or what is it, 1/4 inch. But a lot of times they don't say 1/4 inch, so you're looking for 6 millimeter. And then another thing, I had never heard of putting nylon on your seams. Like that was a very new thing for me. So my first one, I didn't do any of them because of one, I didn't have nylon ribbon or nylon cording, or I'm not sure exactly what it is because I don't have like the wording right in front of me. But I didn't have any of it, so I didn't use any of it in my first one. And I've never used it in any of my other bags before, so that was a totally new thing. And then I said that I didn't have it. They're like, oh, just use something that's not stretch. It's like, oh, well, I have plenty of ribbon, so I'm going to be using, this is what I had on hand here at the house. And so it is 3/8 inch. And so this will be So it's not stretched, so we'll see. So I'll be adding a little fun decorativeness that no one will ever see except for whoever watches this video, and I'll know that it's there. But so those are the additional things, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anything, but as it comes up, we'll go. Oh, grommets. There we go. Big old grommets. Yeah, so or eyelets, grommets, whatever. So you're looking for 12 millimeter. And if you happen to have a die press for these things, oh my, your life is going to be so much easier, because I do not. So I have to literally have like a little cover thing and then a little thing that I hold into it, and I just hammer it. Talk about a workout. Or if you ever get like, if you have any pent up anger, like that is definitely a nice release, because you're just like smashing the hammer. Just don't miss and accidentally smash your thumb, because that would really hurt. But okay, let's get everything pushed away and we'll get started. Okay, starting with our front flap, we're going to punch where our magnets are supposed to go. And this varies depending on the type of magnet that you have. If you have one of the ones that has the prongs, you're going to install it based on that type. I personally have the rivet style magnets. So all I need to do is I need to punch that one hole, and then I have the little special die presses for them, and then I just go and squeeze it together and I'm done. So you're going to need to install your magnets based on the type that you have. So I'm going to go ahead, punch this hole for myself, and I'm also going to grab the lining of my flap. So this one's getting slightly ahead, not too far, but I'm going to go and install both male and female ends of my magnets to each of these parts right now, and we'll come right back. Okay. After you have your magnet installed, for myself, I like to add a piece of Decovil on the back side just to kind of help reinforce that area, because it is going to have a lot of tugging and pulling on it. So we got that done. We're going to grab our bottom piece with the little notched out areas. We're going to place those right sides together, and make sure you're placing the bottom piece attached to the bottom of your front. So the circles are going to be towards the top. So we're going to put those together, and I like to just throw some clips on there to hold it. And then we are going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. After you have it sewn, we're going to then take the bottom, we're going to push it down, and you can either just finger press this, or if you happen to have a little seam roller, you can, trying to keep it in the frame. You can use a little seam roller to kind of roll that seam to help it stay flat. I'm just going to give it some little finger presses, and then we're going to top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch. After you have your top stitching done, we're going to flip this over, and we're going to trim the front panel, this material right here. We're going to trim that off to about 1 inch to the inside, and that's just going to help reduce bulk when we go to sew this all together. So you're going to try to get close to that, your first stitch length. So when we know that's going to be our top stitching, so you're going to get close to that for about a little inch, a little more than an inch. Mine's probably more than 1 inch, but that's okay. So you're going to make sure that you do that to both sides. Okay, once you have the little notch cutouts, we can go ahead and set this aside for the time being. And then we're going to grab our flap. And then one thing that I messed up on, you want to make sure, I said centered, I goofed up. You want to make sure that the top of the stabilizer from this, the flat edge,
is 3/4 of an inch down.
So mine's a little too high on it. So we want this to be a little bit more down into the curve, but it's not going to be the end of the world either. So that's just my goof. So I just want to preface that for you guys to make sure that you guys don't make that same little mistake. So we're going to, since we already have our magnet done, we don't need to do that. And then if you wanted to, depending on where you like to add your label, if you like to add it to the front of your flap, this would be the time to go ahead and add your label to the front, and then you would install it just based on whatever type of little label that you have personally have. Okay, we're going to lay these right sides together. I'm going to put some clips on there, just make sure to hold everything in place. And then you can add as many or as few clips as you'd like. It's whatever you are comfortable with. And then we are going to sew this
at a 1/4 inch seam allowance.
And we're going to start at this end. We're going to go down around the curve and back up. We are not going to be sewing this because that's how we're going to turn that flap right side out. After you have it sewn down, if you have pinking shears, we're going to do some cutting. And if you don't, we're just go ahead and grab your scissors. So right about where where it starts to curve, from just above that, we're going to either use the pinking shears or your scissors, and you're going to cut little triangles all the way around to the other side where it starts to kind of go straight again. That's going to be able to help to, when you turn this right side out and you kind of smooth out that seam, it's going to give you a nice smooth seam, so it allows the fabric to be able to move. If we were just to turn this out right now, you'd get a lot of, the fabric wouldn't have anywhere to go because it's taking it from something that's flat to now it's like going to scrunch it up. So it's going to make it go bumpy and wavy. So we want to be able to kind of do little, like, they're like relief cuts. So go ahead and add those around. After you have it cut or trimmed, you're going to go ahead and we're going to turn this right sides out. Go ahead and reach inside, and you're going to then try to smooth out that seam the best that you can. And then depending on the materials that you have, you can take it over to your iron and kind of give it a nice little press too. Okay, got it all turned out, and then make sure like you can roll the edges just to make sure that your seams are all lined up. And then if you'd like to, you can add a few clips around just to hold it in place. We're going to top stitch this. So we're going to start on one end, go all the way around, and we are going to sew across this as well to make sure that we close that off. And then we're top stitching at 1/8 of an inch. After you have your top stitching done, you can go ahead and set your flap aside, and we're going to grab our straps. So we're going to start on one. So whatever I do to this one, you're going to repeat to this side. Okay, so we're going to draw a few different lines. And we are going to first draw we're going to draw a center line. So our straps are 4 inches wide. So we're going to draw a 2-inch line all the way down. And then we're also going to draw a 1.5-inch line all the way down as well. Okay, we are going to grab our double-sided stick tape. So the 1/4 inch would work just great. So yay, that's what I have. We're going to lay that on top of the 1.5 inch line first. So we're going to lay that down all the way to the end. Okay, once you have that double-sided stick tape down, we are going to peel up the paper off the back. And then we're going to grab, what is it? I think it's called the nylon. I don't know. The stuff that's not stretchy. That's going to help reinforce your straps and your seams. So in my case, my ribbon. And it's gonna look so pretty that no one's ever gonna see except for the video. And then just because I'm gonna heat seal the end just in case. I don't know why, but you never know. So you're going to lay that right down on top of that double-sided stick tape. And this is where, if you do have the 1/8 inch double-sided stick tape, you can, as the instructions say, you can apply it to both of these ends. And that's going to help when you fold it into here to be able to help hold that in place, because we need it to be held, because we're not just immediately going to fold it over again and do a traditional strap. We're going to be adding in a zipper into that, so it's going to be a little creative, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to add it right down the center and just hope that this will work just fine. After you have the double-sided stick tape in place over either on your ends or the center, you're going to peel up the tape. If you're doing it on the edges, just peel off one edge and then you're going to fold it in one at a time. Oop. Oh, that stay down. I just want the paper. Give me the paper. There we go. Okay, so what you're going to do, even if you have it in the center or on one of the edges, you're going to take your edge and you're going to fold it into the center. And we're not going right on top of the line. So we want to be able to see our line, essentially, between the two pieces. So I'm hoping that my little 1/4 inch piece was going to be wide enough to get both sides to hold. Because we want there to be like this ultra tiny little gap in between the two sides. So you'd go down and press the one side, and then you'd bring this other side and you're going to bring it in the middle. And so you're going to have this little tiny little gap right in between the two. So go ahead and you're going to press that together and go down the entire strap. And then if you want to, you can prep your other strap to be looking just like this when this is all finished being folded in together like this. So you might also hear grumbles and sniffs and snorts. Those would be our youngest corgis. Yeah, that, if you heard that. They're roughhousing. They roughhouse and play all the time. So in total, we have 11 corgis. So we have a house full of them. But aside from all the corgis, and that kind of explains those guys. But this is what your straps should look like once you have both of them done. Whew. Yeah, the strap is probably the most time consuming part of the bag. Once you get past the strap, the rest of the bag comes together really quickly, which my first time doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, this strap is taking forever. And then after that, I was like, oh wow, okay, I'm done. Kind of one of those things. Okay, so we're going to grab our zipper tape, and you are going to, this is more of a straighter edge. You're going to cut it down to 17 3/4 inches. So we got 10. Where am I at? Okay, so we're about there. Okay. Okay, only a little bit. And then make sure to heat seal both ends of your zipper. And then we are not going to be adding the zipper pull on for quite some time, so don't worry about it. Okay. Depending on how comfortable you are, we're going to pull these apart, and we're going to take one of the ends and we're going to 90-degree our zipper ends to kind of give us like a nice little stop. So you can either sew it, so we're going to bend. So I pulled it apart just a little bit. We're going to bend this over and then fold it back up on itself. So it kind of looks like that. So you can either put a pin in that and sew it, or if you're comfortable and if you have like little tweezers or little hemostats, there we go. I'm like the thing for the medical, the pinchers. So yeah, you can, and then you can hold it and then kind of add some heat to it and then press it together. And that will, oh, how did my fingers get so dirty? Jeez. It will hold itself there. And thankfully it holds itself there long enough for us to continue to do the rest of the sewing. Just be very careful when you are using the lighter and heating, because this is going to be very hot, and when you pinch it together, if you hold your fingers there too long, you can get the, not kind of like that, but not quite like that. The melted material can actually stick to your fingers and kind of can burn them. So just be very careful if you're doing the heated squish method. Okay, so we got that part done. And if you are doing the sewing, you would just take like a little pin and then hold it in there and then just slide it under and then just kind of back stitch there a few times and then pin the other side and then back stitch along the edge there as well. And then if you would like to, the instructions say to kind of press, not, of course, not on top of the coils. You can press the side tape here to kind of smooth it out to make it a little bit more, depending on if it's really bumpy and wavy, a little more manageable. Yeah, I think I might give it a try. So I'm going to go do that real quick. Okay, I got my little zipper pressed. We're going to take one of our straps and we're going to draw a 3/8 inch line on just one side. So this is going to give us the line that we're going to line up our zipper tape onto. And we really only need to mark this line for roughly 18 inches onto our strap, because that's how roughly how long. It's a little bit longer than our actual zipper tape, but we don't need to do the whole thing. Okay, so we got one side, and then we're going to grab our double-sided stick tape. If you have the 1/8 inch, it says to use the 1/8 inch. I currently only have 1/4 inch, so I'm going to line it just on the underside of that line. And I'm only going to be applying, or I'm actually going to be applying this all the way down, because that's going to help hold our strap together. So I'm applying this all the way down on one side, and then I will show you. It's a little bit different than the instructions, because I believe the instructions say to put the tape down all the way on both sides, but to kind of help save on tape, I'm only going to be putting tape on the other side where my actual zipper is. I don't need it the rest of the way. Okay, so I'm going to peel off the paper just in the area of where my zipper is going to go. Come on, tape. There we go. So that way I don't have any extra sticky stuff just hanging out when I don't need it. Okay, so that's there. Okay. So we're going to take the flat end here, and then we have our kind of a curved end. The curved end is going to go down that way. So we want to apply the flat end to the flat end here. And we're lining up this edge here with the line that we drew on our strap. So as you can see, here is our line, and then here is our zipper tape, and you're going to apply that for the length of your zipper tape. And I'm not pulling and yanking on the zipper tape. I'm just gently pressing it onto the tape to make sure to hold it in place. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit of a finger press. You can also use a seam roller to kind of press that to make sure it's really secure in place. And then on this side, I'm only going to be adding tape to this side for the length of the zipper. So from here to roughly there. That way we get to save some tape for us. So we're going to then go ahead and remove the paper for the remainder of this. And then we can remove the tape from this, the paper from this side. Okay, and then we're going to fold. So we have it here. We're going to fold over this side. And we want to try to make sure that this is even. If the backside, so here's the backside. If the backside piece is slightly over the front, which is this piece right here, I would rather have that than have it be too short, because then when we top stitch it closed, my first one I missed and I missed a few big areas. Even doing the little pin trick, I still managed to just royally miss it. So I was like, okay, fine. And so from here, so you can see the tape transition. So we save all that tape from pushing that on there. And so the parts that we can see here, you want to just make them even along this edge. And then just kind of pinch and squeeze those together. And then once you get it kind of pushed together, you can use a seam roller to kind of really press that in to make sure that they stay in place. Okay, now we're gonna focus on this area. So if you have some pins, we're gonna do the pin thing, because this is definitely important. We're gonna go through the front, and we're gonna make sure we're lining up the edge of the pin, or the pin with the edge of the material. And we wanna make sure that our back material is lined up with that edge as well. And the nice part about the double-sided stick tape, you can kind of lift it up as needed to kind of help adjust. So I'm gonna do that in a few areas. Hopefully this time I get lucky and don't miss giant areas. Okay, so as you're doing the pins, just pick up the back side and kind of push it over so that way it's like right up against your pin. So as you can see, it's smushed right up against. So you really want to make sure to go the length of where the zipper tape is and add your pins all along there. Make sure that adjust anything as needed. So I'm going to continue to do that. And then once I get those all in place, I'm going to take my pins out and then we're going to sew on it. Okay, I got my pins removed, and then I did add some clips to kind of make sure to help, like, nothing is going to move as I'm getting ready to sew and things are getting moved around. And then I just want to make sure, like, as it's sitting here, you can kind of roll and kind of push the back material down a little bit more. And so that's what I did. I kind of pushed it more, pushed the back down, and then added the clip. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sew down this at 1/8 of an inch. And I like to sew from the top side. So now I'm going to have to start over on this end. So just take your time, make sure that you really want to make sure that your materials are staying lined up. Okay, and then as we get into the zipper area, if you need a hump jumper or anything like that, depending on your machine, go ahead and pull that out and use that. Okay, I took the clips off and I just flipped it over and it's like, yeah, I have a little bit more right here, but it's like, you know what? I don't care. I didn't miss it. I got it all on the first try. It's like, do a little happy dance. If you got it on the first try, definitely do a happy dance, because that is like, because my first one, yeah, my second strap, I missed less than my first one, but I still missed. So it's like, this is my first time not missing. So I'm just like, I am definitely doing a little happy dance in my chair right now. Okay. I'm not going to get too excited because we got to do the other side now. Okay. So we're here. And last time I mixed up which side I needed to draw my line on. So I have my zipper facing down. So that way I know, there we go. I need to draw my line on this side because that's where it's going to get lined up. So so now that I know what side, I'm going to set that one aside for the moment. Get everything ready. Okay, so we're drawing that 3/8 inch line for 18 inches down this side. If I can get the 3/8 to line up. There we go. So then, just like we did before with the first side of the strap, we're going to add our double-sided stick tape to the smaller section. So this underneath that line. And you're gonna add this side all the way down. And then we're gonna add, I'll add that side after I add the zipper. No, I'm gonna do it now. So I'm gonna just roughly add however long my markings are. Add that to that side. Okay, press that tape in and then go ahead and remove the paper for the side that we're adding our zipper tape onto. All right, this will be a little, not quite as easy as doing the other side, but it's not too bad. So again, we're just taking our zipper tape and then just double check when you are adding it to this side that your edges of your material are lined up as well. Because when I went and added the zipper tape right to the edge, this side right here was like way, like at least a 1/4 inch higher above it. So it's like my tape was definitely not even, but it doesn't, there's like a slight gap. It's going to be okay because that's going to get sewn into the seam allowance. So again, just go down, adding the edge of your zipper tape right underneath that mark that we drew. And again, you don't want to pull or tug on your zipper tape. There we go. And then give it a nice little press, kind of make sure it stays in place. And then we can remove the rest of the paper, and just like we did for the other side, we are going to then fold these together. After you have it folded back together, just like we did on this side, you're going to do the pin test and make sure that everything is lined up along this edge. You can add your clips as well, and just like this side, you're going to sew it at an 1/8 inch all the way down. So I'm definitely doing a happy dance for sure because I got the other side. Woohoo! Yeah, adding the clips, because the first time I did it after even doing the pin test, I didn't put clips on. Adding the clips to make sure to really hold the material, because it can puff, because it's puffy. And so it's like, so it can puff and kind of roll a little bit. And I think that's how I missed more of I missed less on my second one, but I still missed. So clips are very helpful in making sure that it doesn't move. So yay. If you did miss in an area, just go through, and if you need to pick out a few stitches, so let's just say I missed in this little section right here. If you can push, like lift up the tape and kind of push the material over, throw some clips back on there. When you flip it back over, go a few stitches below where you missed and a few stitches above where you missed, and then just line up your needle with where the whole needle hole where it goes down, and then start there. Do not back stitch. Stitch to where you need to and end. Again, don't back stitch. Pull your threads long, then flip this over, and then you can pull your threads to the back and then tie them off and then just heat seal them. Yes, you'll see the little knots on the back, but that's the back. It won't be as noticeable on the front, because the back, of course, is going to be against our body, so we're really not going to notice it. So, but that's an easy way to be able to fix this thing without having to unpick your entire stitching. And just like I did this on my first one too. After you do the stitch down the one side, you're supposed to turn and then stitch down the other side. So this is the second time that I've gotten it. I've just been so focused on getting this side done that I'm just like, I gotta get this side done, gotta get this side done. And so then I forget, it's like, oh yeah, turn. And so now I'm gonna go down this side and top stitch it here, and then I'll stop, and then I'll top stitch down this side. Okay, got both sides now are stitched and looking marvelous. The instructions say to go ahead and at this point you can add your strap ends if you are going to be doing the optional strap ends if you want. I personally am going to wait and add them at the end just because it's easier to slide them through the slide adjuster without these strap ends on them. It's not impossible. Yes, it is possible to do it, but I'm just gonna wait and do it at the end. Okay, so also at the end, make a couple marks, and so it doesn't matter if the strap ends are on or off. We're just going to be making a few marks so that way we can add our rivet. So that way, because that's how it's going to get finished, is a rivet attachment. So from the edge of this, we are going to be doing a 1/2 inch mark. So a 1/2 inch up from the edge, and then right in the middle, because our strap is 1 inch wide. And then we're going to also make another mark at 3 inches up. And we're going to have that centered. And then you're going to do the same thing for the other strap, a 1/2 inch and 3 inches. After you get your marks made, we're going to go ahead and punch out the holes for those. Okay. After you got your holes punched, you're going to go ahead and grab your slide adjusters. And then you can also go ahead and, if you're going to do your strap ends, now you can do your strap ends. So we're going to, and you're also going to need some rivets. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide, because mine has a little indicator, like a little seam right there. So I want that to be like my bottom per se. So I'm going to slide it under, go up. We're going to go over the top. And so we're going to have that centered like that, and make sure to do that to both of them. And then there is a right side and a wrong side. So you can see where the prong, you can see where the prong curves over, and you can see the end of that. That would be kind of like the back side or the wrong side. And then this is the pretty side where it's a nice continuous seam. So that's the side that we want to have be facing up. So we're going to go up. We're going to go over and down. There we go. And so now we can go ahead and I'm going to add my little strap ends. So these ones are just little press ends. So I'm going to grab my little pincher thing, and you just slide those on, pinch it and pinch them close. And then I'm going to grab a rivet, and then you're going to line up the holes, add your rivet, and then give it a press. And so then your strap ends will technically be finished. Once you get your rivets added, this is what the end of the strap will look like. Looks really pretty. And I do like the way the strap ends right here, these little guys. I like the way that those look. It just gives a nice kind of high-end finished look. But again, it is completely optional. You do not have to add them. And because it's on the underside, you're really not going to see it as much. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to pull these guys apart. And we are going to grab our swivel clasps. Okay, so this is where this is gonna get a little fun. So we want to, so I got slide adjuster in this hand, and in my zipper in this hand. You don't have to do it exactly like me, but it's just for my mentally thinking about how I'm gonna do this. So we're going to slide this on. We wanna make sure that the swivel part is facing outward. So push that through. So then if I push those in one hand, they're going to be through the loop, and this is what it's going to look like. Okay. So then we're going to take the end of our zipper. We're going to go up. You might have to finagle the zipper teeth out of the way a little bit. We're going to go up. And I'm just bringing it all the way through the zipper. We're going to go over the top. And we're going to go down. And again, you might have to kind of pinch and squeeze and finagle that zipper out of the way. There we go. So this is what it's going to look like. So we have the part, this is the part that was riveted together. We have our swivel clasp down here at the end, and then our side with our zipper teeth. This is the part that we're going to be pulling down and through. So when then it's done, we have, again, swivel hook down there, the slide adjuster, and then we have the zipper teeth. So this is what your half of your strap will look like. So then you're just going to repeat that process for this side. Okay. After you have both of your straps done, we're gonna go ahead. Oh, they're over here. I'm like, what do I do with my zipper pulls? So we're gonna grab one zipper pull and we're gonna put these straps back together. And because mine were slightly off of each other, so like you can see my zippers start a little bit lower. So I really want to make sure that this stays as even as possible to make it this length of the straps even though it's slightly off isn't going to be the end of the world. But anyway, I'll show you guys when I add the zipper pull. So we're going to add one side in a little bit, and let's see if I can intentionally do this wrong first. Okay, so there's one. Oop, that one slid out. Okay, I'm trying to intentionally do this wrong first, so that way I can show you what the other end would look like if you put them on. Okay, so you can definitely see that these are way off, and so this is a very dramatic showing. When you get down to the other end, you can see these are way off. So that's why it's important to try to make sure that you try to get these lined up the best that you can. So that way down here, this is lined up to the best of your ability. Okay, so now let's try to do this the proper way. Okay, so let's back that out. Okay, so we're gonna make sure we're looking through the back of our zipper and they were relatively even. Let's try getting those going through evenly. Oop. Push that one back in. And it might take a few tries. It's totally okay. If you have one of those little like fancy zipper jigs or like the little fork dingle hopper zipper pull thingy, that will definitely help. But I do not have one of those. So I have to kind of fumble my way through this. Okay, let's re-get this. I like how it's easy to purposely do it wrong than it is to try to get it right. Okay, there we go. So add those together. Now the ends of my strap look pretty dang even, other than that piece. I can trim that one off, but they look relatively even. So now let's bring the zipper all the way down. Oh, that looks marvelous. Yeah, those look pretty dang even. So I am very happy with that. And because I'm happy with that, I'm going to sew across my zipper coils right here. That's going to hold them in place. So one, they don't come apart. And two, I don't accidentally lose my zipper pull off the end. So just go back and forth over your coils a few times. Okay, with that little stopper sewn down, our strap is technically finished. So now we can set this aside and move on. Okay, we're next gonna grab our handle and we're gonna draw a couple lines on this as well. So this is, okay, I'm definitely not doing math. So to find the center of this, I am kind of folding it over, and then I'm gonna use my pin and in the crease, draw my line. Okay, that's good enough. And then we want to draw a second line 3/4 of an inch up. So 3/4. And then just like we did for our strap, we're going to add double-sided stick tape onto that 3/4 inch line that we drew. And that is where we are going to add the nylon, or in my case, the ribbon, for stability purposes. And then I'm also going to add, if you have the 1/8 inch double-sided stick tape, you can add it to either side like the instructions say, where I don't. So I'm going to just go right in the middle. Okay, and then kind of press those in, and then you can go ahead and remove the paper on the handle side. And then we are going to add our nylon aka my ribbon, right on top of that. Okay. And then go ahead and remove the paper for either side, so you can do one side at a time, and then you're going, just like we did on the strap, you're going to fold that to meet the line, but you want to leave a slight tiny little gap in between the two sides. Okay, so there's that part. And now from this part, we need to draw a couple lines. So we're going to draw 1 inch in from both sides and make a line. Oop, there we go. That way I'm actually in frame. After you have your marks drawn on either side, we're going to lay another piece of double. You know what? I think I'm actually going to see if I have wider. I'm pretty sure I have a wider piece. Ha ha ha. I'm gonna bust up the wide tape. Oh, there we go. And so I'm gonna lay this down right in the middle, in between those marks. All right. There we go. And then give that a nice little firm press down. And then go ahead and remove your tape, not your tape, your paper, even though half the time the tape wants to come off with the paper. Okay, rope. I definitely have rope. I definitely have more than I need, but it's okay. So I'm going to trim this so I don't have quite a little bushy end. Can this melt? I have no idea. Or does it just burn? Oh, yeah, cool. It kind of melts-ish. Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down on top of my double-sided stick tape in between my marks. And in the supply list, it actually says how long of a piece of rope you actually need. I'm just laying it down, and then I'll cut it at the other end. Okay, there we go. And then I'm gonna do a little heat seal-ish. Yay! Okay, this is cool. This will be my first time using the rope. I definitely have plenty more for future day trip backpacks, because these are actually really cool backpacks. Okay, so now that the rope is in place, fold this over and we're going to add some clips. And so I'm lining up, making sure that the edges are lined up. Okay. And then we are going to sew this at an 1/8 inch. We're going to sew the two sides together. Make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, now that you got your handle finished, we can go ahead and set this aside. And the next thing we're going to grab is our D-ring tab. Okay, so our D-ring tab should be 2 inches wide, so we're going to measure in the middle. And so draw a line all the way across. So my D-ring tab is both of them combined. If you cut yours separately, just make sure to draw the line down the middle on both of them. And then we're going to add in some double-sided stick tape. I'm going to put in one of my larger pieces, because I'm hoping it will work for adding the nylon, aka my ribbon, and also work to be able to hold my sides in place. Okay, so once you get your double-sided stick tape down, we're going to then peel the paper off and then go ahead and add your ribbon. I need to make sure to heat seal my end. I'm gonna add that right down the middle. And it doesn't look like I'm gonna really get it, so bummer. There's a little bit on each side, so maybe. Okay, so once you have that in place, well,
Now I can't really see where I'm going, but just kind of like I'm guessing, or if you wanted to, you can go through and draw another line. Yeah, I think I'm going to draw another line because I can't really tell. And then I'll add some more double-sided stick tape. All right, now that I got more tape on there, I'm going to fold that into the middle. They're going to meet at the line. So then you can take a seam roller and roll it across the middle, or just I'm like finger pressing mine. And so I'm going to sew down each of these sides at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay. After you get your 3/8 stitched down, the instructions say you can go through and then you can top stitch at 1/8 of an inch just along the edge if you want to. I kind of like it just like this. So for me personally, I'm just going to leave it like this. So to be able to get my 2 pieces, because I just cut mine as 1, I'm going to fold it in half and then cut it in half. And then if you had yours as 2 separate pieces, then you would have just sewn them like that. So now I got my 2 pieces, and now I can find my hardware. And then we're going to add that on and then fold those ends together. If you want, you can sew these ends closed just to make sure to get those to hold in place. I'm just going to throw a little clip on there just to hold it in place for right now. Okay, we're going to set these aside for the time being, and we're going to start working on our zipper pockets and the overlays. Okay, for our overlay zipper pockets, we're going to, eventually we'll need the overlays, but right now we just need our zipper pockets and our zippers and zipper pulls. And so I'm going to be doing the zipper pocket pieces for both the exterior and on the interior, even though if you're going to follow the pattern exactly, the interior gets done a little bit later, but I'm kind of like, well, if I'm already doing one, might as well do the other kind of a thing. All right, so we're going to start with laying one of our pocket pieces right side up. We're going to take our zipper and lay that down right side up. So it's going to look like this. So we're lining up edge to edge and also along the top. And then you go ahead and you can throw some clips on there to hold it in place. And then you're going to sew this together at a 1/4 inch, I believe. Yes, 1/4 inch. I'm not going to take that one off because now I'm just going to grab another pocket piece that's for my interior. Well, they're the same size for inside the interior or the exterior. So I'm just going to grab my next one and do the exact same thing. Once you get that one side finished, we're going to then grab our other pocket side and we're going to lay that right side up. We're going to open and kind of push the fabric away like that. And then we're going to lay the other side of the zipper facing up as well, lining up those edges. And clip those on. And then again, you're going to sew that at a 1/4 inch. Okay, next we're going to add our zipper pulls onto our pockets. So we're going to open this all the way up and then just kind of press that open, because pressing it open, and you can even use the iron to press it as well. And that's going to help when you go to stitch for the overlay. So we're going to just kind of notice what the coils look like. So this head has one slightly higher. I'm going to pull those apart. Hopefully this one doesn't give me as much trouble. Swing it around. There we go. Then we're going to look through the back, like back through there. And then as long as when we push the zipper up, if it looks the same, which it does, that's one coil higher, our zipper will look nice and pretty, and we don't have any bulges going to either side. So I'm going to purposely try to show you guys what a bad zipper would look like. So
Hopefully I can do it wrong. Okay, so that side has one slightly higher. Okay, this is definitely exaggerated, but you can really see like how it's got like that crazy bulge right there, and it is like way off. Let me see if I can get it a little bit closer, but still off, just to kind of make sure you guys can see the difference. Okay, so now this side is the higher one, just a little bit higher, which is opposite. And even then, if we accidentally switch sides, you can still see this has a little bit of a bulge to it. And the zipper, if I were to follow this top piece and to follow it straight across, it doesn't stay in line with the coils. It kind of goes off to the side a little bit. So that's what you want to look for, and make sure that you're getting your zipper teeth in correctly, because especially with the overlays, you'll notice it a little bit more. When you're doing like bags with double pulls, you don't notice it as much versus with a single pull. Got it. Okay, and so now you can see with it on right, I don't have any bulges going to either way, and this top piece is following in line with the coils. Okay, so we can set these aside for the moment, and we're going to work on our exterior. So we need to grab the back. We're going to be grabbing one of our overlays and some double-sided stick tape. Okay, I got my back. If you have a back piece that is directional, just make sure that the top of it is up at the top, up here, because that's where we're going to need to put our overlay, is towards the top. So I'm going to fold my back piece in half, add a little snip right in the middle. That's just going to help me with my ruler to line it up to make sure I'm putting the overlay in the correct spot. So I want to measure 1.5 inches down. So I'm lining up one of these lines right here with where my center notch was. And then my lines going across the top are lined up as well. Okay. And then if you want to, you can add some double-sided stick tape to the back of your overlay to help hold it in place. I'm going to add like a small little crease so I know exactly where the center of my overlay is, so I can line that up accordingly. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to slide that over, and I'm going to sew around the outside, so out here, all the way around at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and then I'm right back where I started, and so I'm not going to back stitch there. I'm going to lift my needle, I'm going to pull my strings long, and then I'm going to pull my threads to the back to tie them off back there. And then if you don't want to, you can just back stitch, and then you don't have to worry about doing this part. So I pulled one string, and then it gave me a loop. So I'm going to push pull on the loop. So that brings one of the threads from the front to the back. I'm going to pull on my other one, making sure I hold these guys so I know which ones I've actually already pulled. And then I get that little loop, and there we go. And if you've back stitched at the beginning or the end, that would make doing that part a more difficult, not impossible, but it is more difficult to pull the strings to the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie this off, and then I'll trim the excess of my threads. And then I'm going to heat seal them as well. Okay, and now we need to cut out this middle piece to be able to make room for where our zipper is going to go. So I'm folding it in half, adding a little cut right there in the middle, and then I'm going to flip it over from the back side. I'm going to reach my scissors through, and then what I'm doing on the front side is I'm using my fingers to kind of lift the overlay up so I don't accidentally cut the overlay, because that would kind of be a major bummer if you did. So you're going to go around and cutting off this middle of where we sewn, so this middle section, and you're going to leave just a little bit of material left around. Okay, got the center cut out, and now I'm going to grab for one of my zipper pocket pieces. And if you want to, you can, and it does make it a lot easier, adding a little bit of double-sided stick tape. Let me get in frame. right here at the top and the bottom. So that's why it's like important to make sure to get this to lay flat and push this out of the way. And so you can have the double-sided stick tape there. So then when you go and you remove the paper, and then you would take your overlay and lay it over the top, and then kind of center the opening here with the material that you can see. So that way it's not kind of like super off center. You want to try to center it the best you can. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. That looks pretty good. And so then the double-sided stick tape, you kind of press it down there, and then you can lift up as needed. And you want to make sure that you center those coils in between the opening there. And then once you get it centered how you like it, and you like it that it looks good, you're going to sew around the inner side at 1/8 of an inch. So I'm back at the beginning again, so I'm going to do the same thing where I pull my threads long, and I'm going to tie them off at the back. So in the instructions, it mentions being able to secure and tie this off. I personally don't. This is where I'm at, and I heat sealed and I tied that off and heat sealed that. I leave it at this point. If you'd like to follow the instructions and do what she does in there to be able to make sure to secure these, by all means, please do so. I just won't be going over them in this video. So then we want to make sure we're going to bring the top down. And then we notice that it's a little bit longer. So we're going to trim off the excess. And what we're also going to do is we're going to cut an angle in there too. So I'm going to cut this excess off, and then I'm also going to pre-cut the angle. So that way when I sew this pocket closed, I don't have to try to makeshift an angle, so to speak. Okay, once you have that trimmed off, and if you want to cut the angles, you totally can. You don't have to. We're going to, if you want to, I'm going to throw a couple clips on there just to make sure to hold it in place. We're going to flip this up. So our back material is facing right side up. We're going to pull a side over so then we see our pocket, and we're going to sew through the pocket down, making sure we always keep our exterior out of the way, and we're only going to be sewing the pocket pieces. We're going to sew the kind of the U shape around, and you're going to do that at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, we got this all finished, and if you want to, the instructions does mention to use pinking shears or making little snips to be able to trim off the excess around this to be able to help with any fraying. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, got my pinking shears or the trimming done, and so I'm going to keep this up here beside me because we're going to need that here in a moment. We're going to grab the very bottom piece of our back material, which is the one that has the little notches cut out on it. So we got that one, and then make sure we're going to grab our ruler, and then I'm going to grab a little marking pin, which is erasable. Make my mark at 1.5 inches, and then we're going to make a second one at 2.5 inches. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to make one mark at 1.5 inches, and I'm making my little marks, I'm making my marks within my seam allowance so they're not super big. And then I'm doing another one at 2.5. So there should be 1 inch in between our two marks that we made. If you would like, as it says in the instructions, you can add a piece of double-sided stick tape right there if you want. I'm going to forego that. And where did I put my... Oh, there they are. Usually I keep my D-rings over here, and I'm like, where did I move them? So we're going to add our little D-ring pieces on here. We're going to lay them down right in between the two marks that we just made. And I'm going to put a clip to hold them on. And that's where if you did double-sided stick tape, you wouldn't necessarily need the clip. And then I'm just going to baste those on at 1/8 of an inch. Once you have your D-rings added on, we're going to grab that middle back piece and we're going to lay that so the bottom half, so this being the top and our bottom, lay the bottoms at the bottom of the middle piece and the top of that one. We're going to lay those right sides together. So we're making sure to line them up side to side and also along the top edge here. And then add some clips. Okay, once you got it clipped on in place, we're going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And if you have a hump jumper, this would be the time that it would come in handy to help get over that bulk of your D-ring tabs there. And then I'm going to pull my little pocket, zipper pocket piece. I'm going to make sure to push that out of the way so I don't accidentally sew that into my seam. Okay, after you have it sewn together here, we're going to open our seam up and we're going to press, so you can see the seam is pointing upwards. We want that seam to be pointing downwards, and then that's going to help our D-ring tabs to push up. So we want to make sure that both D-ring tabs are facing up and the excess is pointing down. And kind of, you can either seam roll, use a seam roller, or you can finger press. And then once you get it kind of like you want it to cooperate with you a little bit, and we're going to top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch. After you have it top stitched, we're going to grab our ruler and a marking pin, and we're going to measure up from the top of this bottom piece right here. So not the stitching, so the top of the piece. We're going to measure up 3/8 of an inch from there, and centered on our D-ring tab, we're going to make a mark right in the middle. And we're going to do that on both sides. Okay. Once you have your marks made, you're going to punch that hole out, and you're going to either, in the instructions, she prefers to use Chicago screws. I personally do not have Chicago screws on hand, so I'm going to be using a rivet right here. So I'm going to go ahead, punch my holes, add my rivets, and I'll be right back. Okay, got my rivets added, so I'm going to set this close by, not super far away. I'm going to grab my strap for my bag, and I'm going to make a mark that is 3/4 of an inch down from the top edge of the strap. And where's my marking pin? There's my marking pin. So make a line right across the top of those guys. And then we're going to bring back over our back piece. If you want to, you can add a piece of double-sided stick tape right here across the middle. That will help hold this in place. And what you're going to do with that notch in the top middle, we're going to line up our coils right in that middle piece right there. So we got that and our coils. So that looks good. And then we want to make sure to line up the edge of our line here with the edge of our back material right there. I'm going to throw some clips on to help hold it in place. And then once you get that done, we're just going to sew that at 1/8 of an inch. After your strap is sewn on, again, we're going to grab our little ruler and a little marking pin, and we're going to measure 1.25 inches away from the edge of our strap in each direction. And then we're going to grab our handle, and we're also going to make some additional marks on our handle as well. We're going to measure in from each end 3/8 of an inch. Okay, for our handle, we're going to make sure our stitching is away from the strap, and we're going to line up with that mark our 3/8 inch. And so it's going to be kind of at more of an angle piece. And then the double-sided stick tape right there, you can add that to help hold the strap in place. And then I'm going to bend this around, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, lining up that line with our 3/8 inch. And there we go. And then we're going to sew those down also at 1/8 of an inch. Once you finish sewing on your handle, this is what your back will look like. And then we're going to grab our little middle accent piece, and we're going to lay that right sides together and making sure we're lining up edge to edge and also along the top here as well. And go ahead and clip that in place. Once you got it clipped in place, you are going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And if you need a hump jumper, go ahead and please use one. After you have your middle accent piece sewn down, we're going to push that up, and then we're going to kind of push this downward. So just like we did before, we're going to push all that excess material down. So it's going to push our handle and our backpack straps up. And then make sure you can use that seam roller or just give it a good press. Press that seam down. And then we're going to top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch. And again, if you need to use a hump jumper, please do so. After you get your top stitching done, you're going to, just like we did on the D-rings, we're going to measure down from this edge right here. We're going to measure onto our middle back piece. We're going to measure in a 3/8 inch, and we're going to do that for the handle, strap, strap, handle. So you're going to be making 4 holes, and then you can add 4 either Chicago screws or rivets. Once you add your Chicago screws or rivets, this is what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to set this to the side right here for the moment, and then I'm going to grab my flap piece. Okay, so on my flap, I'm just going to kind of fold it in half. And then I'm going to add a little snip right in the center. And I should have done this on my little accent piece beforehand, but I didn't. So I'm going to somehow fold my back piece in half. So line up the edge and work my way to the middle. Hopefully, there we go. Add a little snip. There we go. And that's going to help us be able to line up our flap. So I want to lay this right sides together, and then lining up our notches. And then I'm going to add some clips to hold it in place. Okay. And once you get the clips on and held in place, we're going to just base this on at 1/8 of an inch. After you get your flap sewn on, we are going to grab the back top piece. I got that here. And so the side with either the pre-punched holes or the marks, or the side that has these closer to the stabilizer, that is going to be the one that we lay down right sides together. And we're going to clip those, making sure we're lining up edge to edge and along the top. After you get your clips on, we are going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. After you get this sewn on, we are going to flip up our top piece and the flap, and then all of that sewn material is going to get pushed down to the middle, so towards the little accent piece. So we're going to have to make sure to keep the handle out of the way so we don't accidentally sew that. And then if you need to seam roll or press that seam to make sure it's pointed down, we're going to top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch. after you get your top stitching done, we're going to go ahead and set our back piece aside for now. And we are going to work on our drawstring pole and little slider thingy. Okay, we're going to take our drawstring, and how wide is this? All right, so it's 1.5 inches, so we want to use 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to mark our center, and we're going to mark the center all the way down. Okay. Once you have your marks done, you can go ahead and add a piece of double-sided stick tape just below the line, and that's going to be for our nylon, or in my case, my ribbon. But for myself, I am out of my ribbon. It just ran out, and I do not have any more of this size. So I'm going to try to lay mine out in the middle of this. So that's where I'm going to be adding mine. But for yours, you'll add double-sided stick tape and your nylon or ribbon across the entire strap. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add another piece of double-sided stick tape right down the middle. Or if you wanted to, you would add it, if you had the 1/8 inch one, you'd add a small piece on this side and a small piece on this side. And then just like we did with our straps, you would fold it into the middle, leaving a slight gap on the line. And then you do that for the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and add mine to the middle and then fold everything in, and I'll be right back. Once you get your strap kind of folded to the middle first, then we're going to, if you wanted to, you could add another piece of double-sided stick tape just on one side, and then we're going to fold it over again. And then so we'll have no raw edges. So we'll have that side, and then we'll have that side. So you can use double-sided stick tape, or for myself, I'm just going to be adding clips all along the way. So we're going to fold that in half, and then once you get it folded in half again, we're going to sew down the side that has the 2 openings like this, or just is open like this side. We're going to sew it at 1/8 of an inch, and we're not going to be sewing the other side. So we're just sewing this one side. Okay, and again, after you get it secured how you'd like to, either clips or double-sided stick tape, we're only sewing along this one edge at 1/8 of an inch. Once you have your side sewn down, this is what your little pole drawstring will look like. And then technically, if you wanted to, you can add your little zipper ends. I'm just going to add mine after I get mine threaded through and everything, so I don't have to worry about trying to have these on and get it through everything. So I'm going to put these on last. So we can go ahead and set our drawstring aside for the moment. Next, we're going to grab our draw slider. And so the wider side is what we're going to have here. And we're going to draw that, the center of that line. So that one, I'm just going to kind of fold in half. And then slide my pin in on the underside, or in between, to be able to draw that center line to make life easy. There we go. And then I'm going to fold it. And if you want to add some double-sided stick tape right here, you totally can to help hold that in place. So I'm going to just add some clips there. So we want that to meet the line. And then same with the other side, fold to meet. There we go. And then I'm going to sew down the sides at 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to do both sides. Once you have the sides sewn down, we're going to fold this in half. And then I'm going to use my pen again. Just make a little mark in the middle. And then I'm going to fold this edge to meet that middle. Add a clip. Trying to add the other side. There we go. And then we're going to sew down both sides. So we're going to make a box. So let me move that one. That one's kind of in the way. So at 1/8 of an inch from each side, we're going to sew down this side, go over, sew back up, and then so I'm going to make a full little box right there. Oops. I guess I goofed up, and so I was supposed to sew, instead of at 1/8 inch, I think it was supposed to be 3/8 of an inch. Oops. It makes my numbers up. Sorry. So you can either, like, so this doesn't look bad, so, but you can also, so this can be done at a 3/8 inch, so either one. But we're going to go ahead and add a couple little rivets in here. So it's going to be, technically it would be centered within like the two different lines because it would make like more boxes. So I'm just kind of play it little by ear. So we got 1.5 inch-ish, so 3/4. There we go. So I'm just going to go 1/4 up in the middle of this little box on each side. So 1/4 in. There we go. So then I'm going to punch those holes, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my rivets right there. Okay, when you finish adding your rivets to your draw slider piece, this is what it's going to look like. And we can go ahead and set this aside. Okay. Next, we are going to grab our slip pocket and our little top accent piece for it. We're going to lay this open, right, so right side is up. We're going to fold this in half, so right sides together. And add in a couple clips there. And then we are going to sew down this side and this side at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're not going to be sewing this top piece. After you get your pocket sewn, I like to trim my corners. That way, like when I go to turn it, it will lay a little bit flatter, but you don't have to do this. Okay. And then we are going to turn our pocket right side out. And you want to make sure that you really get those corners turned out nice and pretty. And then sometimes I will use a mechanical pencil just without the lead sticking out. And then kind of reach into that corner and just kind of poke it out like that. And then depending on the type of material that you're using, you can take it over to your iron and give it a nice little press to make it look really pretty. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is we are going to grab our little accent, top accent piece, and we are going to, so it is 1 inch wide, we're going to make a center mark on this one. Okay. Once you get your center mark done, I'm using some big tape for mine. I'm going to put some tape in the middle, and then if you wanted to, you could kind of put it either side of the center line. So like the instructions say to put 1/8 inch on either end, but again, I don't have 1/8 inch, so I'm just going to do one big piece right in the middle. And then I'm going to, if you were doing the one side at a time, you would just take one side off on the tape and then lay your pocket piece on, and then that will attach to that one, and then fold over the other side, take the paper off the other side, and then fold that over. So mine's kind of like that, but not quite. I'm also going to add some clips to make sure to hold it in place. And then we're going to sew this at 1/8 of an inch. We're going to sew across the top, and I'm going to trim my pieces off after I sew mine. But that's just like that's my personal preference. kind of forgot what I was doing for a moment. So I already cut them off. So I just went right alongside, make sure that it was kind of even with my sides. And then I just trimmed off the excess of my little accent piece. Okay, we're gonna grab one of our lining pieces, and then the side with the notches, that is gonna be our bottom. So on the top, I'm just gonna bend it in half, and then I'm gonna add a little notch. Move that down, and then I want to grab my ruler, and then we're going to lay our pocket piece 2 inches down. So again, I'm making sure to line up one of these pieces or lines with my center, and then these lines are lining up with the top part of my lining. And then I'm going to kind of crease my pocket piece there in the middle, and that way I know exactly where to line it up. And then double check that it is lined up all the way along the top there. Okay, I'm going to hold that in place, swivel this around, and then I'm going to sew around. So I'm going to go around down the side, across the bottom, and then back up. And I'm not going to be sewing across here. And then we're going to be sewing that down at 1/8 of an inch. After you have your pocket sewn down, we're going to be making a mark 1/4 inch in from each side. And then in the instructions, it says 3/16 of an inch down, or 4 millimeters. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but so the little trim piece, I'm like, wow, my brain is just not wanting to function. So that's a 1/2 inch wide. So I'm just going to go right in the middle of that. So I'm 1/4 inch in, and then 1/4 inch down. So I made my little mark, and I'm going to do that onto the other side. And then after I do that, I'm going to punch my holes, and I will go and add my rivets, or you could do rivets or Chicago screws. So personal preference on that one. And then after I get those done, I'll come right back. Okay, once you add your rivets or Chicago screws to your slip pocket, you can go ahead and set this aside. We're going to grab our other zipper pocket and our other lining piece. And you will also need your other zipper face as well. So we're going to make a center notch on the lining side. And then the steps for how to install this is the exact same as the exterior. The only difference is when we go to line up our overlay to get that lined up, it is a different distance down. So for the lining, it is 2.5 inches down. So I'm going to get that lined up first. And then I crease this, line that up there. And then at this point, everything that we did for the exterior, we're going to repeat for this one. So we'll sew around the outside, cut it out, add our zipper pocket piece in, and then sew on the inside. And then when I get to that part, I'll come back and then we'll go from there. Okay, and just like with the exterior zipper pocket, you guys can follow the instructions on how to tie off and secure everything back here if you would like to do so. So after that, we're going to flip that over. I'm going to trim up the excess of this pocket. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a clip there. And then the instructions, it gives us a nice cool way to finish the pocket. We're going to fold back the material onto itself. So it will look like this. And I'm going to put a little clip there. And make sure to do the other side. And that will help us when after we get the bag all finished and turned out, that will help us to be able to close our pocket seam for that. And now we're going to flip this over. And just like the exterior, we're going to pull the lining out of the way, and we're going to sew one side. So we're going to sew this side at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to sew this side at a 3/8 seam allowance. We do not want to sew across the bottom at all. Once you get your pocket sewn up, this is what it's going to look like. You'll have a seam here, and then this will be open. And for myself, I personally like to add my business labels to the inside of the bag, which I still need to trim up. So I just use a piece of vinyl and I embroider my business name onto it. If you have a really nice metal piece, you can add it anywhere onto the front or back. This would be the time, if I didn't already say it previously, I can't remember now, to add to, if you're going to add it to the front, you're going to add to the back. I believe in the instructions it has you add, if you're doing a metal one, I believe on the front somewhere. It's personal preference wherever you'd like to add it. I'm going to go ahead and add mine right here below the zipper pocket, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I got my business label on here, and now we're getting to the point where we get to start putting the bag together. Yay! So we're getting that much closer. So depending on where you would like your zipper pocket or your slip pocket on the inside will kind of determine whether you attach. So let's say you want your zipper pocket up. So if you're the front of the bag, if you want it against the back of the front of the bag. So if here's my front, if I want my zipper pocket on this side, I need to put those two together. If I want my zipper pocket against the back, I need to put it with the back. So personal preference on where you'd like to put that. So I'm going to put my zipper pocket in, I think I'm going to put it in the back, even though, yes, my back has a zipper pocket. So it'd be zipper pocket against zipper pocket. No, I'm going to put it on the front because usually I like to put it on the back so that way my business label is right there. But I think I'm just going to put it on the front because then the pockets won't be fighting against each other. So I'm going to go ahead, grab my slip pocket, slip lining, and my front. So push that one to the side for the time being. So I got my front exterior and my slip pocket lining piece. So I have I'm going to lay my front right side up. I'm going to take my lining and I'm going to lay it right side down, right on top of it. Again, we're making sure we're lining up edge to edge and along the top here as well. And make sure we're going to clip those together. Once you have it clipped together, we're going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you have it stitched together, we're going to open this up and we're going to press that seam, and all the excess right here is going to be down pushing towards the lining side. Oh my gosh, I totally just did it. Didn't I say I was going to do the slip pocket, the zipper pocket on the front? Oh my gosh, I totally just realized it. Oh well. Oh well, guess my zipper pocket's going to go on the, it's going to be zipper pocket to zipper pocket. Oh my gosh. Okay. And now once you get that pressed down, you can use a seam roller or use your hands. We're going to top stitch just on the lining side of it. So we're going to do that at 1/8 of an inch. Once you get it top stitched, we can go ahead and set this piece aside, and then we're going to grab our other lining piece. And we're going to grab our other exterior piece, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew them together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to press everything to the lining side, and then we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, after you get the other side top stitched here, we're going to grab our other piece. Once you get your exteriors put together, so we're going to lay them right side together, we're going to line up along the bottom, and you're going to clip that, and we're going to sew that. So I already did because of course I forgot to push the record button. So you'll clip it together, then you'll sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And now that I have it sewn, or after you have it sewn, we're going to open this. So we're going to do it wrong sides up. It gets to be a very big piece with both sides sewn together now. Okay. After you get it opened up, we're going to apply some double-sided stick tape along both sides right there. I only have the 1/4 inch. You'd be using the 3/8 inch. So I'm going to lay that right across, and so make sure you're adding the tape all the way, and you're going to do this to both sides. And once you add it to both sides, just make sure that you kind of press it into there And then you're going to go ahead and remove the paper backing. So it's easier if you do one side at a time. And once I can get it open, there we go. We're going to butterfly this seam open. So we're going to grab it right in the middle. We're going to part it, and we're going to press that double-sided stick tape into the rest of the back bottom. And so that's just going to help it to lay open and make this next part easier. Okay, so then repeat that for the other side as well. Once you got your seam butterflied open, we're going to grab our wide double-sided stick tape. So if you have 3/8 inch double-sided stick tape, I think mine is more, I don't know how wide mine is. It's more like a 1/2 inch. So we're going to lay that right on top of our butterflied seam. And then make sure to press that in so it stays. And then go ahead and remove the paper backing. And then you're going to use a 3/4 inch piece of nylon. So I don't have any 3/4 inch pieces of nylon. So going back to my ribbon stash, I have a 7/8 piece of ribbon. So it's a little bit wider than it needs to be. Really? There we go. So heat seal that in. And then we're going to lay this right over that double-sided stick tape. So again, my ribbon is 7/8, so it's a little bit wider than I need it to be. But you're laying this down because it's going to help reinforce that seam that we just stitched. After you added your nylon to that, we're going to flip this over. And then we're going to sew this or top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch right down on each side of this seam. So that's also going to sew down onto the nylon to help reinforce that seam. Now that we got that stitched in place, we're going to go and we are going to line up some of these seams. So we want to make sure that there's 4 areas that we want to make sure that we're lined up. So these 2 seams, we want to make sure that we get them lined up. And then these 2 seams where the exterior and the lining meets. So I can get everything moved out of the way. So these 2 seams, we want to make sure that we get them lined up. So they're going to look like that when we line them up. And we're going to do that and make sure both seams on each side. So you have 4 seams that you need to make sure that you get lined up. And then go ahead and then add your clips onto that. And then once you get your 4 seams lined up, then you can work on clipping the rest of the lining and the exterior together. After you get it all clipped together, we're going to sew down each side at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And just to know, we sewed down the side. We are not sewing across the bottom of the lining. So we can flip this over and then we're just gonna sew down the other side. After you get both sides finished being sewn all the way down, we're going to, on the exterior side only, we're going to sew a second line. So an 1/8 inch or just right next to the line that we already sewn. We're going to sew a second one, and we're only doing this on the exterior. So when you get down towards where the lining is, make sure to stop. And you can see here I stopped before I got to where the seam allowance seam was. And then we're going to make sure to flip it over, and you're going to do the same thing for the other side. Okay, we got both seams done on the exterior side, and now we're going to go ahead and box our corners on the sides. So you're going to, it's going to be easier if I reach inside, kind of puff out the corner to kind of give a little bit of space between the front and the back exterior. And then kind of got to work with all the extra material. All right, there we go. And then since the bottom is butterflied, we want to make our side seam butterflied as well. Or if it doesn't really want to butterfly, but we're going to make it butterfly. There we go. And I'm just going to throw a clip on there just to kind of help hold it. Okay, and then we're going to sew this at a 3/8 inch. And then we're also going to sew a second line, just like we did on the side seam here. And then you're going to do what we do for this side, you're going to repeat for the other side as well. After you get your corners boxed, we're also going to trim some of the exterior pieces, the seam allowance. Okay, I'll get that one. Add a little snip. There we go. Now I can actually get in. There we go. And then we're going to trim up. But then as we get up here towards the top, kind of like when we get, before we get to that line, the fold line there, we're going to then turn off like that. Okay, so then you're going to repeat that for the other side. After you got your seam allowance trimmed up, we're going to make a few little cuts here. So this above, so this is our snip line that we drew at the very beginning. And so we're going to trim this excess right here, and we're going to do that to both sides. That's just going to help try to reduce the bulk when we turn the bag right side out. And then we need to make a snip through both sides of the exterior right there at the snip line, and we don't want to cut our threads. If you accidentally cut the threads, just re-sew right there and it's okay. And then make sure we trim that down right there, and then you're going to repeat that snip and those two trims for the other side. So in part of the instructions, it says like she uses an old piece of like a handrail, so a wooden, kind of like a thick round dowel, so a good size, to stick it in and then press the seam of your lining open. And then also to try to get, it looks like depending on your material, I wouldn't be able to press my vinyl here, but there is, and I don't own any leather glue just because I don't work with leather.
But even though I'm using vinyl, I can still use the glue there, or you can still use the glue there to help open that seam up, because one, it will also help it to lay flatter when we go to fold that over, and it also helps to reinforce that seam as well.
But what I think I might do is, like we did on the other side for me personally, because I did this on my other one, I angled left this piece long here, and I trimmed, and then I went off as I got closer to up here. So that's what I did on my first one, and it seemed to work out for myself. But if you are able to, you can stick something on the inside of this, and then you can go ahead and, again, depending on your material, press this seam open. After you have your seams pressed, we're going to go through the bottom part of our lining, which is why we left it open, and we're going to turn our bag right side out.
But before we turn our bag out completely, this little area right here, that top part, if you want to, you can add glue all around where that stabilizer is, and then when you go to fold that over, having the glue there will also help just hold that material together and give it a really good structure and stability.
Okay, got our bag turned out. So now what we're gonna do, so part of that line and the stabilizer that we did at the very beginning, right there, you can, as I kind of turn that over, that's our fold line right there. So that's where we want to go ahead. I'm going to put some clips on there to kind of help myself and help the bag as well. And then at that point, everything that's on the lining side of that turn, we're going to push down inside of the bag. Make sure go around, and that's where pressing these seams open right, at least right here at the top in this area, is going to help when we go to top stitch this, to help it not be quite so bulky. So one of my oops moments, because I like to make sure to show you guys I'm just as human as everybody else, my oops moment. When I was top stitching, I believe the back right here where the flap is, my pocket got caught in it. So I'm like wondering, like, why isn't this going flat? I don't get it. I look inside and sure enough, I caught my pocket. It's, like you can see where this old stitching was, and I had to cut all that off. And so I just re-stitched that right there. So yep, there's my oops moment. So just be mindful, like when you're doing your top stitching, make sure pockets are definitely out of the way. Okay, so once you get that turned in and pushed all the way down, this is what it's gonna look like. So it's got the little bit of the lining or the exterior pushed down to the middle, and that's gonna be where it's like the thickest, which is where we're going to add our rivets or grommets. I really still don't understand the difference between the two of them. Anyway, so now comes the time I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to top stitch this so that way my bag isn't sliding all over the place. So I personally like to sew my bags or top stitch my bags at 1/4 inch, just because a lot of times at 1/8 of an inch right here on that edge, it's really easy to slide off, especially when you start hitting a bulky area like the seams. So I move mine down to 1/4 inch, and then it gives me a little bit more gripping material, and it still looks really nice. And then I also like to start and end my top stitching inside of a seam, so right here, so then I don't have like this random start stop point where if you potentially could tell that it start stops right there. So I like to go in a seam, so do that, there we go, and then just take your time going around, especially on the top stitching. And then when you get back to the start where your the seam starting point, I pull my threads long. And then from the inside, just like we do with like the overlays, I pull one and then I get a loop, and then I pull that thread to the back or to the inside, and then do the same for the other side. And then instead of tying these into a knot just yet, what I like to do, and I learned from another person doing tutorials, is I go in the seam line with my kind of more of it's a sharp needle, but it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's blunt, but it's a sharp needle. And then I go up, rectangle, because it's just right there. I'm going to probably just stay inside to the inside. So I go into where my sewing line is, and then I'm going to try to go in between the two, there we go, right in between the two seams right there. and then thread that through. So you want to make sure that the eye of the needle is really big. So it makes this a lot easier. So I'm going to throw all 4 threads through. Okay, so now that all 4 of my threads are through the eye, I'm going to pull them through. There we go. And it just makes it look super nice right there. And like it's a lot harder to tell where your start and stop is. And then I just knot this. And then after I finish knotting it, I trim the threads and then take my lighter and then try to heat seal the ends of the thread or melt them into the seam. But you got to be really careful, especially depending on the type of material that you're using. You really don't want to leave the lighter there or a heat source there too long, because you don't want to melt it. So even from the inside, yeah, it's a little bit darker, but on the outside, you would never know that that's where I start. That's where my start and stop was. Okay, so now that that is secured, so that looks quite lovely. All right, if you have an 11 millimeter or an 11 millimeter hole punch, you're very lucky because I don't, and this is going to be more time consuming for me. Go ahead and punch out your holes for where the grommet, eyelet, okay, instructions say grommet, so I'm just going to call them a grommet. I think my box says eyelet, but we'll go with grommet. So punch out the holes, and then depending on the style of grommets that you have, please follow the manufacturer's instructions on how to install them. Mine might be slightly different than yours, so I don't want to show you mine and then potentially confuse you guys. I'm going to go and install all of these and hole punch off camera, because I don't think you guys want to see me do that for like 30 minutes, because it's going to take me quite a while. So I will be back. Hey, got all my grommets installed. That took a little bit of time and some definite effort, but it's all finished, so yay. We're almost done. We only have a few things left, so we're gonna reach inside the pocket, and because this is the pocket we did not close the bottom on, we're going to essentially pull our lining, kind of bring it up a little bit more, and we're going to grab the bottom of our lining material through this pocket. Might have to do some finagling. Okay. Not too bad. Okay, and then once you get it through, we're gonna line up, so we have our little boxed corner. We're gonna line up this long side. And then after you get this long side clipped together, we're going to sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. After you get the bottom sewn, we're going to box these corners. And if you want to butterfly them or nest them, it's personal preference at this point. So you want to just try to work that. And I think I'm going to nest, and that looks like it wants to go that way. So throw a clip on that side. And then if you're nesting, because mine are pushed that way, apologies, I think hopefully you guys saw that. So this bottom seam is going that way. So when I come to the other side, I want to make sure it's still going the same direction. Yep, there we go. So now it's going that way. And then throw a clip on them. And then we're going to sew those at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Make sure I don't accidentally sew more than I need to. Just like I did with the pocket. And then after you get it sewn, you can go ahead and trim off that excess there. And then after you get this side done, you're going to repeat the same process for this side. After both sides are boxed, we can then push our lining back through that pocket. And then we can push it all the way in through the bag. And then we're going to pull out that lining. of our slip pocket, or zipper pocket, not slip pocket, zipper pocket lining. And then since it was already, those corners were already turned down, it makes it easy to just continue to turn down the rest of them. And then add a few clips. Once you have your clips in place, you're going to just sew that closed at 1/8 of an inch. Or if you prefer, you can hand stitch that closed as well. Once you have your zipper pocket lining sewn closed, we can just push that back to the inside. And then kind of push down the corners of that pocket. There you go. Make sure, yeah, they're all kind of pushed out as much as we can. And we can close that up. Ooh, we're in the last steps, and then we want to grab. What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. We need our little pole string. So we're gonna go. So the front is facing down. I'm going to go through the 2 in the back, middle. So that's going to bring me down into the bag. Then the next 2, I'm going to go out. And then coming into the front, I'm going to go in. Oop, if I can. And see, this is why I waited to add my little zipper ends till after I get it through all of this, just because one less thing to have to fight them through. Not that they couldn't go through, they could. Okay. All right, so now they're through, and then I'm going to grab my little slider. And so this is the back side where we can see the opening and the seam. And so this is our front, so our pretty side. And so with that, looking at the front, we're going to slide the drawstrings in. There we go. So now we got both of them. And then all it is just kind of playing and adjusting the drawstring around to try to keep those as even as possible. So the last things that you can want, if you want to add them, you can. These are optional. So this is the front side. So, and then this is the front side. So I'm going to slide my pull string into the zipper end. There we go. And then push that in as far as it will go. Okay. Once I have the zipper end added all the way, I'm going to flip it over. If you have, it's called Loctite. It's blue and green, and not blue and green, blue and red. And I can't remember which one. One of them's like a semi-permanent, one's more of a permanent. Those are always nice to add onto the screws to help keep them essentially like from potentially backing out, which I don't think they will. And then also having a magnetic screwdriver is very helpful. And then when you add these in, one of the biggest things you want to make sure that you do, because if you accidentally cross thread these, you won't get the screw to go down all the way. So instead, so it's lefty loosey, righty tighty, you want to go to the left first. And then, I don't know if you could hear that little snap in place. That means it's seated itself. And so now when I go to my right, I won't have any issues threading this. So if I were to just go in, it wouldn't have been threaded right. And then in doing so, I'm trying to force it and crank down on it. You can strip the head of the little screw, and they're really tiny, so it's really easy to do. And so then we just do our last one. Go ahead and add in that last screw. I'm hoping that you guys could be able to hear, might be able to hear it. So hopefully you guys heard that one. So that tells me that it's absolutely seated correctly. And sometimes it doesn't always make that noise. Sometimes you'll just go to the left and it'll just keep going, and you're like, okay, cool. Then that means you were going in seated correctly. So then go till it stops. There we go. Cool. And that finishes those. And so now we get to take a look at the final bag. All right, here she is. Oh my gosh, she's so pretty. And so then we can bring the drawstrings together. kind of help fold the bag a little bit. Let's get it to line up. And then after a while, the bag will naturally want to, can easily, much easier go back into place once it's been there for a little bit. There we go. Get those corners, slide that up, and then bring the flap over in between the drawstrings. Oh my gosh, this bag is so pretty. I absolutely love this lacy vinyl. It was so easy to sew. It wasn't super thick or really thin, which it was like the perfect vinyl, and I didn't have any issues sewing over the big thicker areas. And I love the way this strap looks. And so it's like you could go into backpack mode or sling mode. It's completely, I love that there's that option for this. Oh my gosh, so pretty.
And thank you guys for watching this tutorial of the Daytripster backpack from Casey's Original. I'll have the link to grab your pattern down in the description. And again, I appreciate you guys watching this tutorial. And if you can, please consider to like and subscribe.